David Costa at the Scriber Public Library, and today I'll be reading you this week's edition of the TBS Scriber News. Grade 5 and 6 math displays. All grade 5 and 6 classes have been taking part in bi-weekly virtual EQAO sessions with math lead Carly Baker. She has been presenting the students with a variety of mathematical skills and concepts that have been part of previous EQAO assessments. Mrs. Baker set up these 45-minute sessions to be fast-paced and highly engaging by using a variety of teaching methods, Kahoot vocabulary game, math picture books, color by number with metric conversions, and many more. After each session was complete, students and teachers were left with extension activities and additional materials to help students get EQAO ready. In late January, one of these tasks encouraged the grade 5 and 6 classrooms to create a classroom math display. You might think that January is a bit too early for preparing our classroom environment for EQAO, but Carly thinks the sooner the better. EQAO will be administered a bit differently this spring, and some guidelines have changed. As an example, classroom displays were previously taken down from classroom walls, covered up, or modified. This is no longer the case. Carly believes the longer the display is made available to students, the more confident and comfortable students will have to access it. On these displays, students can find many math strategies, vocabulary, graphic organizers, examples, and math tools. Intentionally and purposefully, using classroom environments as a teaching resource can assist students in their day-to-day learning and with their EQAO assessment. Ultimately, all homeroom teachers want the students in grade 6 to be resourceful by looking at all classroom displays if they are struggling at any time during their learning. Terrace Bay is in the process of procuring a permanent dedication to Terrace Bay residents who have served in the Canadian military. After searching historical records and speaking with community members, we have been able to identify 115 individuals who served in the protection of the rights and freedoms of our country. If you know of a former or current Terrace Bay resident missing from this list, please email cds@terracebay.ca with their name, rank, and approximate service time, as well as when they lived in Terrace Bay. The final cutoff date for submissions is Friday, May 13th, 2022. Thank you to all those who submitted their friends, family, and loved ones to make this project possible. If you would like to donate towards this project, please visit the town office or call 807-825-3315, extension 7101. The Terrace Bay Scriber News is looking for community contributors. The Terrace Bay Scriber News and Nipawin Red Rock Gazette are always looking for community contributors to help keep their communities up to date on the day-to-day goings-on. Community contributions can be as simple as a great picture you took, either scenic or maybe just of something in your town. Of course, a descriptive sentence is always appreciated. Community organizations, groups, and even businesses that wish to showcase things they have accomplished, things they are doing, ongoing activities, good news stories, bad news stories, or anything in between. There is no guarantee a submission will be printed. Some submissions may appear in the Terrace Bay Scriber News and the Nipawin Red Rock Gazette. Email community contributions to tbsnews@yahoo.com or nipawingazette@shaw.ca. For information on upcoming events in our area, go to the community calendar on page 3 of the Terrace Bay Scriber News. Protecting the hard-won rights of women. Last week, American women woke up to the news that their autonomy over their own bodies was threatened. The leaked Supreme Court of the United States draft ruling on abortion was devastating and sent chills down the spines of women in the US and Canada alike. I couldn't help but think of the generations of women that have fought to assert their rights over their own reproduction, so fundamental to our autonomy and self-determination. Grandmothers and mothers that insisted that the world would be more equal for their daughters, who marched for the right to vote, to work, to study, and yes, to choose whether and when to reproduce. Early on, before I was first elected in 2015, I was elated that then leader Justin Trudeau said that a candidate could not run for the Liberal Party if he or she would not attest to supporting women's reproductive rights and choice. And when I won, and was subsequently appointed Minister of Status of Women, I was proud to stand up, time and again, to protect the rights of women to choose. Then later, as Minister of Labor, I reasserted the need to defend women's rights by ensuring that no Canada Summer Jobs funding went to activities seeking to undermine women's rights. Later, as Health Minister, I withheld Canada Health Transfer money from a province that refused to support access to abortion and indeed made it more difficult for women to access a full range of reproductive services. Canada is indeed a different country, but some politicians here would like to roll back these hard-earned rights. Several Conservative Party leaders have actively courted the anti-abortion movement, and some candidates in the Conservative leadership race right now are overtly promising to work to reverse reproductive rights for women in our country. A Liberal government will always stand with women to ensure that reproductive rights and choice, including abortion, are protected. And our government has plans to broaden access for women to a whole range of reproductive services through the Canada Health Act. I look forward to the work Ministers Ian and DeClaus will do to implement this campaign commitment. Safe and destigmatized access to a full range of reproductive choice, including abortion, is not only important for women, it is important for societies. When women do not have safe access to abortion, it doesn't end abortions. Rather, it forces women to seek out dangerous alternatives that can be life-threatening. This is already happening in states that have recently restricted access, and we shouldn't be surprised, because this is a well-documented pattern. As a woman grateful to the strong women who came before me, but also as a Canadian, and a minister whose 4 portfolios in cabinet have uniquely intersected with women's reproductive rights and autonomy, I will never back down in the fight for reproductive freedom. Patty Haidu. Be sure to check out the entertainment section for this week's crossword and weekly horoscopes. Dave Moscow promoted, confirmed detachment commander of Nipissing OPP. Ontario Provincial Police Northwest Region is thrilled to announce that Sergeant David Moscow, Thunder Bay Chappaqua Detachment, is promoted to Staff Sergeant and becomes Commander, Nipissing Detachment. Staff Sergeant Moscow has been acting in this role since 2021. Staff Sergeant Moscow started his career with the OPP in 1997 at Thunder Bay Detachment. He has worked in various areas including the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, Casino Enforcement Unit, Provincial Communications Centre, and Thunder Bay Detachment as Parole Sergeant. In 2021, he assumed the role of Acting Operations Manager and then subsequently Acting Detachment Commander of Nipissing OPP. Prior to joining the OPP, he served 10 years with the Canadian Pacific Railway Police. Dave graduated from and instructed at the Canadian Forces Leadership School in Wainwright, Alberta. Additionally, he graduated from the Law and Security program at Confederation College in Thunder Bay. He holds a designation in corporate governance from the Rotman School of Management. He is a recipient of the Police Exemplary Service Medal. Staff Sergeant Moscow was identified as qualified for promotion to the rank of Staff Sergeant through the recent non-commissioned officer competitive process and an interview with a panel which included representatives from the Police Service Board. Staff Sergeant Moscow's exemplary service to the citizens of NWR has spanned decades. I am proud to announce his promotion in command of our Nipissing Detachment. His dedication to keeping the Nipissing area safe is absolute, says Chief Superintendent Brian McKillop. By leading with integrity, honesty, and courage, he has earned respect well beyond the walls of his detachment. Poetry Month. To celebrate Poetry Month, the Nipissing Library hosted an hour of poetry readings with Red Rocks resident Terry Lynn Johnson. Her book of poetry, Sprigs and Twigs, speaks in poems about many different themes from nature, to animals, to home, and to personal experiences in her life. Johnson read and quoted from her book, Taking a Break for Acoustic Music, performed by Mike Kivari. Johnson, who teaches in Rocky Bay, concluded her readings by telling her audience that one thing that happened with COVID, keeping her home for years, she was able to write 25 new poems and complete writing a novel. She read Wintering Romance, Countryside Fields, and Sit for Tea, all giving those in her audience pictures in the mind, which to me is what poetry is all about. I took the time to browse the book and found the poetry easy to read and very easy to create mind pictures of each one. Johnson will be doing another reading of poems from Sprigs and Twigs, as well as some of her newer work, on May 16th at the Red Rock Library. Terry Lynn had books for sale and to sign, and for those interested, she can be found at www.lakeheadpoet.com. There are copies available at both Nipigon and Red Rock libraries. Ice Out, Smelts, and Rainbows. Let's face it, this spring has just gone on forever. We have had very thick ice and extended cold weather. The forests are still blanketed in deep snow, a record amount of snow on the ground in May. Until recently, the ice was held fast to the shorelines of almost all lakes. An extra month of ice fishing is nice, but sometimes it has to end. We have entered true spring this past week and for the foreseeable forecast future. The record snow in the forests also holds a record amount of water, and the runoff bodes well for the summer to come. So back to the fish. We are all awaiting spring and the fishers amongst us, especially because it brings new and seasonal fishing opportunities and open water, soft water fishing in our boats. Rainbow trout and smelt are two of the more sought after fish in the rivers come spring. I have tracked my smelting dates for the past years, and twice in the past 7 years. Smelts have appeared around May 10th. Usually, they are mid to late April. This year, they will be later than I have ever seen them, as the water temperatures and water clarity they need for spawning just aren't there yet. The smelt will likely be appearing the May 14th weekend and will likely be nettable into the long weekend of May. Rainbow trout or steelhead are in a similar situation. Although there are some in the rivers now, the clarity and temperatures are just not there yet. Walleye spawn in the early spring as well. This year they will be late, which moves the spawning walleye into the open season when they are at their most vulnerable, May 21st. Although some lakes may require ice fishing to catch them, this will affect the fish spawning this year. One thing that is almost a certainty is that the spawn runs will likely be intense and short-lived once the water reaches the preferred conditions. I know I'll be out there on the rivers this weekend looking for smelts and maybe a few rainbow trout. The walleye is not a favored fish, so they can wait until later in the summer when hopefully the ice is gone. Here's a story from the May 11th, 1999 edition of the Terrace-Based Scriber News. Franco-Ontarian artist Norman Fortin visits École Catholique Franco Terrace. Norman Fortin, a Franco-Ontarian artist and sculptor from Kapuskasing, recently visited École Catholique Franco Terrace in Terrace Bay to offer the students a taste of artistic life. An accomplished artist, Fortin won the Northern Ontario Francophone Artist Award last year. Traveling the north to visit isolated schools, Fortin teaches his skills to children using strictly recycled materials, for example, plastic bottles, to create his art and to raise awareness about pollution. All the creations made by Fortin are his trademark designs. Spending 2.5 days in M. Godden's class at École Catholique Franco Terrace, Fortin instructed the class in making plastic flower mobiles and hanging plastic birds. Thank you for watching this week's edition of the Terrace-Based Scriber News. Please support community newspapers by purchasing a subscription.